Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tom Johnson, and I'm the director of the EOGOGICS Web Live programs. Having been involved in computer-based training in one form or another for more than 25 years now, it's my pleasure to welcome each of you to this Web Live session. For those of you who may be new to EOGOGICS, I'll just refer you to the About EOGOGICS page on our website. Suffice it to say that the EOGOGICS team, led by KK Aurora, has been involved with many landmark telecom projects worldwide during the last 20 years or so. In fact, I think KK is in our audience here somewhere. KK?
I am. Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon and welcome to the class.
Well, thank you, sir. And with that, let me introduce our instructor today. Jim Cavanaugh is a principal member of the EOGOGICS Telecommunications faculty. During Jim's impressive 30-plus year career, he's been involved in the hands-on design of many local and global networks involving many different technologies. It's no surprise then that he teaches a wide variety of EOGOGICS courses, including NGN, IMS, SIP, EOIP, VOIP, IPTV, Unified Communications, Mobile IP, IP version 6, IPsec, MPLS, SNMP, Ethernet, Sonnet SDH, DWDM, Network and Installation Security, Disaster Recovery, CALIA 911, and many other topics. He's a popular instructor and has taught hundreds of classes on the web and in person worldwide. He's published a half a dozen books and scores of articles on various aspects of telecommunications. He's as entertaining as he is knowledgeable, and I think you'll enjoy today's class. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Cavanaugh.
Well, welcome. And in regards to the international audience, I'd like to say welcome, bienvenue, bienvenidos, Sawubona, howdy, yahala, namaste, and for those folks watching from the U.S., hey y'all, and yo. Oh, and a quick good day. So I hope I haven't missed anybody. We have folks from all over the place today, and it's obvious to me that this is an important global topic, and this is the multi-protocol label switching backbone for technical audiences. So I'm glad you're able to join us today for the program. We do remind you that this intellectual property rights for this program are the sole property of EOGOGICS, copyright 2009, and if you wish to use this material for anything beyond your own personal education, we welcome and invite and urge you to follow copyright law, international copyright law, and get in touch with our office and make arrangements for any use that you would like to make of this material. We're going to begin by talking about the MPLS family, and I mean family in a loose respect, but we can say certainly things that have come from the initial MPLS and developed over the course of time. First thing we have to ask is what's so special about MPLS? And in fact, for many, many years, we were really arguing about the question of which is better, switching or routing. And to those people from the telco world, the older time division multiplex world, switching was really where it's at. And the folks from the IP world certainly embraced routing. And it was the switching versus routing debate, and it raged on and on. In fact, we have found that there is an answer to the question that really makes a lot of sense, and the answer is switching and routing is really the answer. And why is that? Well, because in effect, even though we think about traditional telephone networks, TDM, et cetera, as a switching environment, in fact, we have been doing routing for a very long time. In the very old telephone networks, we had a routing component that was purely manual. The humans would determine routes for calls. If there was a need for a dynamic call set up for a long-distance call, I remember being a child and making long-distance calls and having the operator call my parents back saying the call had been established, the long-distance telephone call. So that really was not that long ago. It was guaranteed within the last 51 years that sort of thing was happening. So there's always been in telephony a routing component to make sure the call is going where it goes, and a switching component. The big difference being that in telephony, the routing occurs as a one-time event at the beginning of the call, and then a switched path is established over which the information goes. In the IP context, even though routing is the big emphasis, we have to switch as well. We do the routing initially. We get the first packet there, and then for each subsequent packet, we do the routing again, where the routing decision is made at each of the intermediate points in the network. And these are the classic switching versus routing scenarios. So which is best? Why decide? Because we've actually been doing both in communications for as long as we've been doing communications. And switching and routing come together in multi-protocol label switching, and in fact my own little sound bite for multi-protocol label switching is the best of both worlds, the best of the switching and routing world. At a very high level, the way that multi-protocol label switching works basically is this. The basic vanilla MPLS will basically, the MPLS basically begins, unless it's otherwise configured, by routing traffic using traditional methodologies for the routing of the information, whatever routing technology is needed, and at some point it makes a magic determination that what we have would be called a long-lived flow. In other words, it will be longer than just a very brief transaction like a domain name service lookup or something like that, and it then creates a connection that is a switched path through the network. The way this basically works is in a manner that is completely transparent to the application by shimming in a label or another protocol element where the information enters the network and then going ahead and taking the information out at the other end. So this can be done transparently. And in fact, this is precisely the way that virtual LANs work, is this VLAN switch inserts the information and it is then able to retrieve or to delete that header or shim information at the destination. So the performance of this is completely transparent to the actual end user devices. No special software, no modifications on those devices. From MPLS grew something called generalized MPLS, and in fact what we will do later is to talk about what I call the pendulum of complexity and some of the things that have happened in standardization and in the popularity of MPLS. But let me begin by just saying that initially MPLS was really a fairly straightforward and fairly elegant solution, and in fact it nearly found a home with the IP people, the IP folks, the Layer 3 people, and as they were doing their work, they were determining, of course, there was the Layer 3 routing component, and they were looking at layers below Layer 3, and in fact below Layer 2.5 where MPLS sits, and wondering what their switched alternatives would be. They looked at the lowest layers, being some of the optical things and all that, and that didn't appeal to them at all. They looked at the thing called asynchronous transfer mode, ATM, which they felt really was a competing technology, and they did not like ATM one single bit, so they decided ATM would not be an alternate path. They looked at frame relay, and they liked what they saw. So the initial MPLS really was routing over traditional Layer 3 routing, or quote-unquote switching over frame relay VCs or virtual connections. The frame relay VCs could certainly be switched virtual connections that are set up dynamically, or in a more static environment could be the permanent virtual connections, or PVCs as well. Either way, whatever it made sense in the network and in the specific implementation. So the GMPLS was the next step, and in fact the GMPLS was largely where the telephony standards organizations came in. And if anyone out there is familiar with the Golden Rule, and I'm led to believe that the Golden Rule is one like Murphy's Law that people know all over the world. We know that whoever has the gold makes the rules.